foundation, being able to chop down a great deal of things. You heard my rant at the top of the hour. I'm just frustrated with politics in this country as it relates to people being disingenuous. And I mean, people is one thing, but, entire organization, I think it's wild. So we continue to be able to encourage the organizations, both the FNM more specifically and the PLP, to be reminded about the direction that we're called to move in this country, to be able to empower and support our people. That's what it's really about. I'm grateful to be here with you today, guys, and being able to talk about these things. I want to be able to introduce you to someone who I've known for a very long time. The last time I sat in formality at ZNS, he sat with me. He sat with me, and given the politically rich tension that exists in this country, there was a transition because of not because of anything that we said. It's simply because of affiliation. And I want to thank him and the PLP organization for being able to recognize that we got to pull back against that for what's happening on the top of the hill at ZNS. But he's here with me, and he has really been astute and committed to national growth and development, always being able to put himself to the forefront and really be a thinker for the country, getting us out of economic depression, finding ourselves in a better position. He's doing a wonderful job at that. And when he's not, we can tell him, right? But he's here with us today, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Senator Michael Halkitis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Absolutely.
I
see you got your pink on too.
Yes. At one time, you were also my constituent.
I was. He got at this, He got at this.
Right.
He forget.
At one time, you were also my constituent, but I'm very happy to be here, and I wanted to say I'm so pleased to see you do this transition.
Yeah.
From the what we'll call the traditional media, i.e. on the radio, now to this format, where you're continuing your show and sharing your talent with the Bahamian people. With this, I'm guessing now YouTube is not so much new, but a continually emerging format, and I just want to congratulate you for that pivot. And to encourage you, and to say in the words of the immortal Bob Marley, when one door is closed, another is open.
Absolutely.
And so this one, I believe, will lead to even bigger and better things. So congratulations, and thank you very much for having me here today.
Well,
I missed the rant, so I'm coming in post-rant.
I just was talking about how Michael Pintar took on this kind of position to indicate that the Prime Minister was pressured. Was pressured to go out there, but the Prime Minister walk outside with Kingsley in one hand and Belinda in the next hand, raising it and telling people we get you straight before Christmas.
Yes.
However, Michael ain't tell us nothing, but he had to go to North Abaco when the people in North Abaco say we don't want bootle. Anyway, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
That's a little rant I had.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to be honest about these things. And talk about these things, right? But I want to talk to you about this, man. I'm economic affairs. He's the Minister of Economic Affairs, and being able to talk to us about what's happening in the country. A lot of persons being able to hinge this sort of an idea of what's going to happen in 2026 on the economy, right? And I don't know who says it, but there's a quote that says, "Is the economy stupid?" And a lot of persons being able to take this sort of an idea that the next dispensation of leadership in this country would have to do with the economy. The decisions that are being made in this country has to do with the economy. And I am not necessarily one that believes that, because if I'm going to be honest with you, historically, it has been sort of a feeling towards one administration or another, as opposed to being able to say a specific issue, right? So talk to me about that.
I think Howard, it goes hand in hand, because it's I think it was Bill Clinton who said it was the economy
Stupid, yeah.
Is the economy stupid? I'm not sure, but if the economy is good, then people have opportunities, people have jobs, people are working, they have money in their pocket, they feel good, and so that affects their dispensation towards a political party, particularly the government that's in power. And I believe that what we are seeing from the Bahamian people is a desire, an inclination that now we want to move to that next step economically, and that is of ownership of the economy. As you rightly stated, our job has been, coming out of the pandemic, to put the economy and the finances of the country on a more secure footing, and then everything else flows from that. Um, I, you know, some people say, when we talk about the politics of it, that perhaps you should say what you meet, tell them what you met in place, and there's always a balance in doing that, because as government, as particularly when you're working in the Ministry of Finance and being able to assist the Prime Minister there, and in my role as Minister of Economic Affairs, your role is to promote a sense of confidence, because the things that you say are being consumed by the Bahamian public, they're being consumed by international investors, being consumed by bankers. And so I would say, suffice it to say, we've come a long way. We still have a ways to go. I think we've done, I would endorse the words of the IMF in speaking about the recovery being a remarkable one. Having been able to right the finances without things like job cuts or spending cuts or, what they call austerity measures, but being able to promote growth in the economy. So we're at the point now where we can point to positive growth in the economy this year, and we project it for next year, and an improvement in the finances where we see we don't have to be borrowing annually hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars just to support the budget. And so now, having said that, the next step now is to promote ownership in the economy, because I truly think that that's the next step, and that's what the Bahamian people are looking for. And so that's what I see going into 2026.
Let's talk about that for 2 seconds. Promotion of ownership. How does that look? Let's take it from 3 tiers in this country, right? First tier, grassroots working class. Second tier, middle class, transitioning. Third tier, upper class. How does that ownership look for them?
Well, when we talk about ownership, we're talking about business. And so, firstly, again, I go back to, you have to have a stable environment and economy that's growing, the way you don't see huge gyrations, so that people can have confidence. Okay, if I have money in the bank, I'm going to take it out and put it into a business. I'm going to go to the bank and borrow money to go into business. So it begins again with promoting a stable, growing economy. The second part of it, I believe, is there's opportunities become available. If the economy is growing, there's need for services, there's need for goods. People decide, I want to go into business. The other part of it is ensuring that your government agencies or agencies that the government supports are customer friendly, accessible, relevant to the times. So I'm talking about your SBDC, your Small Business Development Center, your Bahamas Development Bank, your Entrepreneurial Fund, etc., and make sure that they can work with, because their resources will be limited, they can work with the the private sector banks in mobilizing capital. Now that has been a traditional difficulty, because we've been talking about for years and years about the amount of excess liquidity in the banking system that needs to be mobilized. And then even if we look beyond that, our economy that is tourism based, very, very low sort of appetite for banks to lend for people to go into the tourism sector. So how do we unlock that sort of credit? We have recently been able to, in partnership with the Afri-Exim Bank, have the Bahamas Development Bank recapitalized. So they have funds that are available for on lending. We have the Tourism Development Corporation. We put in a $2 levy on anybody traveling in and out of the Bahamas that goes into the Tourism Development Corporation, whose mission is to support, I think the language is improvement in the tourism product, and they have taken the initiative to support a lot of small businesses in the tourism sector. And we have a
potentially that could be about $22 million a year if we get
exactly. And so they target that, and they have been targeting what they call incubators for small business, targeted towards business. So these are steps. Of course, we have to be able to ensure that they're very responsive and We don't have to go through too many hoops. So the process is easy, and it's never going to be enough, but we do the best we can. And so that's the way you sort of, the government, lends its support to that. And I go back to the environment in the country. So, for example, we see coming out of COVID-19, you have tourism come roaring back, and then the appetite of the visitors change. So they want more what they call authentic experience. So they want to go and perhaps stay in an Airbnb. They want to go in family and go to a smaller resort. That created a lot of opportunities for Bahamians then to become, in effect,
simultaneously, it created opportunity for the government to tax people.
Well, which we have not done. Which we have not done. Which we have not done.
Okay,
we made a conscious decision that we would not do it. Now we're looking at, for example, if you have 10 or 20 units, that's different from someone who put a unit on the side of their house or on the side of their apartment and rent that. Okay. But we look at that as a way to it's really ownership. And we were asking individuals to register. And, people say, well, why the government? Well, no, because they want to tax me. But we also, when we talk about protecting the product, you have to make sure that, things are up to standard. And so if someone wants to, you don't want to damage the product by having an individual feel that they wanted to rent something of a particular standard and it wasn't. So I think that's going to be the sentiment going forward, ownership. And again, if I were to go back to COVID-19, coming out of that, you have a lot of people who did what they call a side hustle because their job closed down during COVID.
That's exactly what they call it, a side hustle.
Right. And then
supplementary income. Okay.
Supplementary income. And then, decided that, hey, listen, this could be more. Yeah. I can actually do this. I don't have to go back to 9 to 5 and deal with a boss or supervisor. Or
we saw a lot of that.
So a lot of that, and it continues. And so, when we talk about ownership again, it's that change in mindset that, okay, maybe a 9 to 5 for 30 years and a pension and a gold pen or whatever is not for me. I want to have more life balance.
My God, they reduce it from watch to pen.
Well, watch, gold.
You used to get a watch one time.
Yeah, gold.
You get a pen, you'd be lucky, right? Yeah. No, but this is an amazing thing that you being able to say that, and I believe that, and I'd like you to speak to the fact that whether or not you believe that the PLP has come out of that turbulent cloud. I know that coming into 2021-22, that the entire administration would have been taking flack, not necessarily because of anything that you've done, but because of what you would have met in place and the expectations of the Bahamian people. How have you fared as an administration after those initial 2 years?
Yeah, it was, and like I said, Howard, the initial 2 years were kind of stressful. All right.
Might have been 1 or 2 years.
I remember we came in September 2021. And I remember, I had been in the Ministry of Finance in previous administrations. And I remember one particular example is the IMF World Bank holds their annual meeting. As a matter of fact, I'm heading to it next week, where you meet with the IMF and the World Bank. All the financial institutions are there, Commonwealth finance ministers. There's a whole slew of meetings that you talk finance and the way forward. They also have a meeting in the spring, which is in March, April every year. And I remember traditionally we never went to the spring meeting because we just went to the annual meeting. But when we got in 2021, the sentiment and the feeling towards the Bahamas internationally and even locally amongst the financial institutions was so negative that we decided, listen, we have to do something. We have to go to this meeting, and we have to.
Hold on.
We have to let. No, I'm being serious. We have to let. No, because let me tell you why. Because we had
just
Dorian.
came out of COVID. We were still in the middle of COVID.
Exactly. So we had Dorian, and then we had COVID. So internationally, observers, financial institutions looking in, were of the opinion that the Bahamas was ready to go over the cliff. You just had this devastating hurricane, the most powerful
I just read the article that stated that there was a potential downgrade, but no one wanted to say anything because the election was next week.
Yeah, and I think the downgrade came the night of the election.
I remember
right?
this. I remember this.
The election or the day after. Because so that was something to greet you. You just wanted an election, you're downgraded. So I say that to say, and then again, as I said, at the time, you can't, as an administration, as a Ministry of Finance, you have to recognize what's happening, but you also have to exude positivity, confidence that we got this, that we're going to set a plan, and we're going to move forward. So the point I was making was that we never went to the annual meetings, but there was so much negativity. Are we going over the cliff?
spring meeting?
We said let's go to the spring meeting, and we started this engagement. So we were able to go. And I remember sitting across from those bankers, and you're telling them, listen, we're recovering, we're opening, and they're looking at you like you.
Right? You all got to have these conversations, And because the country's
like
saying all you want to do is travel.
So they're looking at you like you're nuts. And they said, why don't you go in an IMF program? And we said, no, we've never been in a program. We've always honored our obligations, and we intend to do that. We're going to grow the economy and get out of it. And I remember we enunciated a 4-point plan, going to grow the economy, improve revenue administration, meaning collect the taxes that are on the books from especially the big taxpayers, control expenditure, and find new sources of revenue. And we said if each one of those doing adding some positivity together, they will help us to get out of the sort of financial bind that we were in. I remember. And so over the and the idea is it wouldn't happen right away. So you were quite correct. In the early days, when we didn't eliminate the deficit right away, there was some negativity, and so but we had to deal with that, and we had to reassure people that this will be a multi-year process, and over the years, if we stick with it, we'll see positive results. And happily, we're a tourism economy. One of the fastest rebounding industries was tourism after the pandemic. And even in the Caribbean, we rebounded pretty fast. Mm-hmm. But dealing with those banks in the early days, it was something else.
You were able to level out some things because we know that you would, despite the fact that you would have come in, you would have reduced VAT to 10%, you would have made all these determinations, trying to be able to appease an internal aspect. I know that it must have been difficult with everyone breathing down your back from an international standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I remember. I'll make this final point on financing. The government has to be financed. Here, you're opening the economy, but you have all these bills that you have to pay. For example, you have to pay back national insurance, in excess of $100 million that they had advanced to the public during the shutdown in terms of unemployment benefits, et cetera. And so what we had to do, and then on the international market, the attitude was that, the Bahamas being heavily dependent on tourism, they're in a mess. If we lend them money, it's going to have to be at a, very high interest rate. And so we decided that we're not going to the international bond market. We will take advantage of our relationships with the IDB, with the Caribbean Development Bank, so that we can access what they call concessional financing. They lend you money at a low rate. And I remember, we were doing a negotiation, and they were taking a little long, so I had to make an intervention to the president of one of the banks, and I remember, and we got it done. And I remember going to a meeting subsequent to that, about a month later, and I go into the meeting, and I said, "Hi, I'm Michael Halkitis from the Bahamas." Said, "Yeah, we know who you are."
We're sick of that hearing from you.
I said, "Oh, okay." But no, in the early days, you had to convince people that we were resilient and that we could recover, and not many people believed it.
Did that weigh on your relationship? Because everything that we're talking about now is from an external standpoint, the responsibilities that the government has to its lenders, its borrowers, so forth and so on, from an international standpoint. So that's external. Did it weigh on your relationships internal? Or did you believe as an organization that you had enough time to do some of the things internally in preparation for the next election?
People's timetables are short. And so, like you said, there's expectation, and there's need to deliver things right away. I think one of the positive things we were able to do was to sign the industrial agreements with the public sector unions. We signed a lot of those, so that gave them some security and some additional benefits. We were able to raise the minimum wage. That brought some relief. to people. I remember when we put in some temporary expansion of things that were under price control. Took some blows for that, but we thought it was, people needed that immediate relief, and then certain other interventions. And so, yes, there's an expectation of immediate results, but I think we're able to do some things in the interim to sort of bring some relief as we sort of, our economy began to accelerate, and you see, the growth and et cetera. Now, we did see early in the first quarter a blip up in the unemployment rate. We expect to see an improvement in that as we go through this year, as more figures come out. And we always say, Prime Minister always says, there's a lot of work left to be done. We're not done. There's no patting on the back or resting on laurels. But I think we're in a much better position now to go to that next step where the economy is demonstrating, a few years of growth back to back, more opportunities available. There's a big emphasis in this budget on things like upskilling, expansion of training, which came in the last unemployment report. We saw some mention of skills mismatch and the need to
The
train
union
people.
was taking that kind of position also, saying that I can't remember who. I know I would have read it, indicating that there are persons that are sent to the job market that are just ill prepared.
Yeah, and I
Just
think
ill prepared.
Yeah, and I think too this is a discussion. And I remember, I think it was Bill Gates who made the statement that when you look at the United States, they built an education system like in the 50s, coming out of World War II, with the big high schools and the big campuses and stuff that was appropriate for a 1950s, 1960s, maybe a 1970s economy. Now, different skills are required in the workplace, and so how do we adapt our education system, our training, to satisfy what is required in the workplace? Should someone go into the workplace?
It's a 20-year conversation. This is a 25-year conversation.
I was about to say it's a 25-year conversation because I recall about 25 years ago, I think the Chamber of Commerce did a study, or they collaborated in a study that showed the very same thing, that there's this mismatch between what employers want on the job and how ready individuals are coming out. And so as a response, we have the National Training Agency that was formed because what we heard was that employers were looking for employees with what they call soft skills.
Yeah.
Subsequent to that, now we have the National Apprenticeship Program that is being rolled out because, again, I guess weighing in or taking from some of the European models where you have individuals go into these apprenticeships and they study for a few years and then go into the place. And now we are moving, again, the Polytechnic Institute on Wolf Road, that is moving towards completion. I've seen some recent pictures. So that's moving towards completion. Again, the idea is giving individuals the opportunity to gain these skills in high school. Not as a punishment, like going into a low stream, but identifying that,
but the only way
technical work and that sort of work is well compensated.
The only way you can make modifications to that and there wouldn't be a stigma associated with maybe you in the low set or you in whatever the case may be, is by being able to shift the curriculum.
Yeah.
You got to be able to empower and identify aspects of the curriculum itself and the way that you approach these things. We had this conversation. Belinda was with us the other day on Wednesday, and she started to talk about the importance of being able to, with this new history book that's being able to be placed in classes, why is it still a part of the elective? It should be a part of the curriculum. It should be these particular things. So to shift that, and to be able to move in that direction, to pull away from the 1950s model that we have duplicated in our country, we need to be able to identify how do we do these particular things. And I think sort of a youthful concept as to what the future needs to be, needs to be incorporated.
I think so as well. And I think there was at some point some sort of education working group or task force. I think what needs to happen is you need to bring all the players. I mean, this may sound cliche, but you need to bring all the stakeholders around the table. Talking about the government, the union, the teachers, even parent representative, employer representatives, so that unfortunately, Howard, a lot of times, if something is being advanced, let's say from the political directorate, then sometimes there's there might be some resistance that no reason for it. And so I think it's a matter of getting all the stakeholders around the table and say, listen, okay, here's our curriculum now. Here's the reality of 2025 and going forward in the workplace and in the business place. And so these are the changes that we need to do. Do we need to go pull back and focus more on literacy and numeracy? All right. And then bring the other stuff in. I don't know. But I think starting point for all of this is bring everybody around the table. Because you're right. It's been a 25-year conversation.
It's a 25-year conversation.
Still talking. Yeah.
Has the obstacle, has the sort of a pushback, has the reluctance of progressive, transparent dialogue for national growth, has the obstacle been the inability for, and I shouldn't use the word inability, the lack of payment for back pay that may not have existed with your administration, but back pay for public servants and whatnot? Most recently, we would have seen a tremendous amount of public servants being able to be in Rawson Square and being able to scream out, give us pay. And this wasn't necessarily because they hadn't been paid for some time. There is a mindset in our country that exists that says, well, if the government owe you, you can get paid. You may not get it right now. You can get paid, right? Yeah. So this is a mindset that exists there. However, there came a point with the public service that middle management of sort was being able to be compensated, and so the lower ranking persons are saying, "What about us?
Yeah,
we're the laborers."
And they of course, they have the right to ask that question, and they had the right, and they demonstrated it to go and assemble and speak directly to the political directorate. I'll say on this particular issue that we're talking about, it does not have to do with back pay or any sort of payment that is owed. What the government did, when I say payment that is owed, that let's say, back pay or benefits that have accumulated in the past and are outstanding. What happened was the government, people always say everything going up except the salary, right? Apologies to my English teachers. But that's what the payments, everything going up except the pay, right?
Okay, go ahead.
And so what we decided to do is the government did a salary review, a general salary review, to look at the levels of pay in the public service. Because what has also been happening is we have people who are leaving the public sector and going into the private sector because of issues of pay. We had a meeting with a particular department on Tuesday afternoon, and one lady said, when I joined the service, I left the private sector to come work for the government because of the higher pay and the benefits. And she says, now it's reversed. The private sector is paying more. And so what the government did was we looked at it and said, listen, we're having difficulty retaining people. For example, you hire young accountants into the Treasury Department. They come and they get some training for a couple of years, and then they're gone because they can be better compensated in the private sector. We have the same issue with the Department of Inland Revenue. All of the regulators, and so we looked at it. The Prime Minister decided, okay, what we're going to do is a general review of salaries, and we're going to adjust the salaries upward. Now there has been some ire because the managers or the middle managers were paid first, but that was simply because you're dealing with a smaller number of individuals, and you're dealing with thousands.
Not importance.
Yeah.
Not
importance. Not taken care of.
It's just a smaller number of
individuals. Just a smaller number.
It's easier for deal with this. Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of our systems are still manual, and so you want to, in an effort to make sure that you didn't leave out anybody, got the calculations right, everybody isn't get what they're entitled to. Because I said to, a worker stopped me the other day, said, man, what happened? I says, if it was a case of us giving everybody a lump sum of $1,000 or $1,200, that's easy. You just put the $1,000. But when you're talking about giving a percentage increase based on your pay, then we have to do
You got to do
everybody.
calculations. You got to take your time.
Calculation, make sure, what they call salary progression.
Yeah, because I know some people
Yeah.
who can tell you, hold on, but hey, look here.
Exactly.
This ain't the percentage.
Exactly.
This ain't proper.
Exactly. And so what we said was, okay, bear with us. It's going to be effective September. It gets paid in December, so you'll get September, October, November, December.
So prior to this gathering, the government was working on this.
Yeah, we were working on it. We had issued a statement saying, that we had to, we know that, they were expecting it in September. Apologies, it's going to be paid in December. Now, maybe we could have said something earlier, so we regret any sort of breakdown in communication. But the intention was always that it would be effective September. Nobody will be disadvantaged, and so we'll go from there. But the idea at the very beginning was cost of living is high, cost of living is rising.
So the Prime Minister was right. He surmised it by being able to say this wasn't a negotiated position.
No.
This is something that I decided that we should do.
Right, exactly. That we should look, but based on rising cost of living, the growing gap between what people earn in the private sector and what we pay our public servants. And so, let's do a review. Let's do a general increase in an effort to bring relief to people, close that gap with the private sector.
This is a good conversation, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this very, 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 very quick commercial break. When we get back, I want to be able to talk a little bit more about some politics. All right? I want to talk about Grand Bahama. I want to talk about the Grand Lucayan and see if we can get that. Talk about the airport, and then we can talk a little bit about Barnabas and Golden Isles.
Yes.
It's going to be right back, guys. Right after this. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Spa Week has been extended, guys, until October 12th, October 13th. He's actually sent it to me. Spa Week with my guy, Vance. He's down there, McKinsey, over at Baja Retreat and Spa. He has some great stuff. I always take a time to be able to do that. I want to thank Baja Retreat and Spa for being able to follow us and what we're doing in this particular space. And we want to be able to say Spa Week 2025 has been extended all until next week, Monday. It's a holiday, and they're going to be able to do this. The offers extended for the gift certificate and retail products only. All right, so the purchase of Spa Week gift certificate online at www.baharetreat.com, www.baharetreat.com, or you can give a call at 323-6711 or hit them up on the WhatsApp 544-1855. East Bay Street, opposite Scotiabank. You know exactly where it is. Baja Retreat and Spa, guys. Enjoy yourself and be able to do that. Guys, we're sitting here and having a good conversation with none other than Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis, Minister for Economic Affairs, being able to talk to us about what's happening and sort of the turnaround that this government has taken in the 2 years after they would have been able to take office. This was not easy for them. We tried to be able to give them the quote-unquote honeymoon period. The expectation kind of drilled in our brain is the first 100 days in office, and that's something that came out of the United States of America. But these are sometimes legacy issues that take more time. Sometimes issues that are entrenched in the particular position. And he would have just told us a story about this sort of a concept and idea that what we did before, sort of in a casual space, we had to make modifications and amplify our approach to be able to deal with these issues. There were some issues that they were dealing with externally. And so, I don't know. I guess you all got to be able to deal with your PR.
Yeah.
You got to deal with your PR.
Yeah, you do.
Because if you were saying to me, we had to go away more to be able to deal with these things because people that looked at us in a particular manner, then it says to me, there's some justification for these things, to this flight.
Let me tell you, we had the issue of the blacklisting, right? And there was a meeting in Paris. And so we're sitting down on, I think, Friday. The AG, Prime Minister, myself, and a few other ministers. The Prime Minister says, Ryan, you and Mike go to the meeting, right? So we said, okay. We left Sunday. We missed the flight. The American Airlines was late, so we missed the connection. So we had to stay in Miami. Got up 5 o'clock in the morning, fly to New York. Got up, then fly to straight to Paris, get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, go to the meeting for 12 o'clock, come out of the meeting at 4, get something to eat, and back on the plane the next day. But
Wow.
if you hear that, right, people will say, "Oh, you've been to Paris," right?
Oh, you was only having scones
Right.
and
So-
you was having a good time.
So that is some of the things, and so we had to go there and we had to advocate and we had to tell them, listen, here's, we're committed to, information sharing and exchange of information. We reject this blacklist. As a matter of fact, we don't think you should be dealing with it. We ended up off, and now we're a part of that movement to have the United Nations adjudicate on tax matters. But listen, Howard, I don't want any of that to sound anything like a complaint. It's been, a privilege to work, in this position.
It don't sound like a complaint.
No,
It sounds like actual work.
yeah, it's work. It's work.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. A lot of people may think that you're on vacation because, the one or two pictures where you're having lunch together, and
Yeah.
people assume that you ain't got nothing to do, and this is a real thing that you're doing. You're going to run a country.
And I was explaining to you with that one. I could give you all sorts of stories about hiccups in travel. But like I said, it's a privilege to be able to represent the Bahamas in all of these different forums, to be able to put our position, and get some results. And so we have to go, and we had to meet with rating agencies, meet with banks, change opinions, even locally, not to leave out the local financial institutions. We began a quarterly update, where we would get them, it's a virtual update. We get them on the phone and we talk to them about how the government finances are performing, what we anticipate going forward, how they can help, and what they can look forward to. And that, again, has helped, create a feeling within the local financial services industry of comfort that the government is sharing information with them. So, yeah, and you're quite right. There's no honeymoon in politics. You got to get down to work right away. But
People give you first 100 days because that's the mindset
Yeah.
that they drill into our heads, or the conditioning that they drill into our heads. But after that, they start to say,
And-
"But you
and
ain't doing this.
Yeah.
You're traveling all over the place.
Right.
You're getting the COP26.
Yeah.
You're doing this.
Yeah.
And so they actually start to bombard you and beat you down in your administration, whilst we don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes.
And as well with that, again, it's the democracy that we cherish. And so when people say that, then we look and we say, okay, we have to make sure that we're getting value for money, that our delegations are lean and mean,
Yeah.
and there's work to be done. So all of that is, it's politics. And when you enter the public sphere,
You got to deal with that.
you got to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little trip down to Grand Bahama. I want to
Yes.
talk about it more specifically. That's my home.
Yes.
Near and dear to my heart. And more specifically, the hotel, Grand Lucayan, is where I sort of cut my teeth as it relates to the coming of age and understanding my strength.
You worked at the hotel?
I worked at the hotel.
Okay.
As I start all this customer service training and all these things like that, to understand where it was, this is where it really started for me. Working there at the Grand Lucayan, well, it was the Al Lucayan at the time. We understand that this was a special resort, and it was almost, I think, about 1,600 employees that were part of the three establishment: Lighthouse Point, Breakers Key, and the Reef Village. And so it was a beautiful space to be able to work in. It was something that was glamorous to the point where everyone in Grand Bahama wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And it was right on the tail end of the Magic City, where the magic still existed in this place. We still had Edward St. George. We still had Jack Haywood. We still had sort of the spirit of what was happening. After Francis and Jean, there's a lot of things that actually took a nosedive.
Yeah.
Right? We saw sort of a migration out of Grand Bahama, persons moving to Nassau, persons moving to Bimini, other spaces, to be able to find themselves in the position, and waiting for the former administration, waiting for the one before that to make a decision of what you're going to do with the Grand Lucayan. This administration has come to the forefront and said that we found a buyer. We know that you were working feverishly at the forefront.
Yeah.
To be able to find a buyer. The Prime Minister comes and says, we should be able to get it done by this time. Then he comes back and says, we hope to get it done by this time. Then he comes back and says, we're looking to get it done by this time. And then finally, we would have gotten the Concord Group, I think that's Concord Wilshire, to be able to put $827 million down to say that we're going to purchase this, we're going to develop it. And so they broke ground for it. Now, based upon information that comes to the forefront, I'll let you verify that. They're saying to us that funds won't be able to come to the table just yet until the airport is done. Talk to me about this.
I heard that discussion in the public domain, but I should say that I think that even though they rely on each other, because when you develop the hotel, you need to have airlift.
Yeah.
And so it's a mutually beneficial relationship that will be there. Listen, there was an agreement for sale of the hotel with Concord Wilshire. There's a period in there where you work out all of the fine details in terms of the heads of agreement and what concessions are given, and you'll understand that investors want every single concession, and the government wants to give. They don't want to give everything. They want something that's reasonable, something that the investor can they invest their money, then make a profit. But again, there's something that comes back to the Bahamian people. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're tied to a 20-year deal that you are not completely happy with. And so during this interim period, there's been some back and forth on the level of the concessions. And as you know, we are governed by what we call most favored nation status. So, places like Bahama and Atlantis, you're not supposed to give anybody any more beneficial concessions than you give them, or else you have to come back and give it to them. So there's been some back and forth. I can say I see some light at the end of the tunnel. I think we have, basically ironed out all of those differences, so we can start seeing the, final closure and the beginning of things like the demolition and then, start to move to the redevelopment. I think it's a similar thing. I can't speak in too much detail to the airport, but I think, again, several players at the table. I think, some got up from the table and came back. And so I think now we're at a position where shortly we can announce, okay, here's what's gonna happen. But I think in the coming weeks and months, we'll see some positive momentum.
Before the end of this year.
I think so.
Before the end. Okay, so Grand Bahamian people are, I'm watching them. They're talking about Celebration Key. They're talking about this sort of concept and idea where a lot of the entities and the attractions that used to go to Lucaya or used to be able to tap into exploration and other adventures and so forth and so on are now concentrated in the Celebration Key. And so they want to know whether or not there's anything, on the drawing board to be able to bring back this attraction, and it goes right back to the hotel.
But I was about to say, when you have it, then you'll have more, bodies there too. I think there's the surrounding, we call it the village. What do you call it? Marketplace.
Yeah,
the marketplace, and then the other attractions. And so, we're very eager, to get that going.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Grand Bahama a few years ago, speaking to a real estate person, and she was speaking about how the Grand Bahamian people are so resilient, and they have been waiting for this resurgence that keeps coming, and we're hopeful that we
both resilient
confident
and patient
and that we get that done, all squared away. But I can say we had to.
You think that this will be the administration to be able to finally put this to bed?
I think so. I definitely think.
Listen, jobs. Well, if it's the economy stupid, then jobs is one of the things that a lot of persons are going to definitely be able to look at.
Yeah.
And we know that if you're going to get into a little bit of politics right now, what I understand that there's even one more seat. Yeah, want to talk to me with this. You say, really? How would you know? And I don't know, right?
Well,
I understand that there's some things, but I'm just saying to be able to capture the attention of the people of Grand Bahama, to be able to the proverbial antennas of all those Grand Bahamians that are peppered throughout the country, to look back and say, okay, it's time to go back home. It has to be something. It has to be something significant, something that we can all sink our teeth into. And I think occupation has to be the forerunner.
Yeah.
I won't go home bad. I got nothing but property home.
Yeah, occupation, and not only occupation, but a career opportunity. Good paying benefits, etc., where you can say, okay, I'm going back home, take my family or start a family. And so I think all that is in the, the contemplation of the Prime Minister. Listen, the place is big, well laid out. Once we get some activity there, substantial activity, people who have been displaced would want to go back, or what you'll call them, some driftwood from Nassau might might want to.
No, Grammy people don't say
Oh,
driftwood.
they don't say driftwood.
Bimini people
Oh,
say
people say
Bimini
driftwood.
people say driftwood.
Okay.
Grammy people, they don't bother, right?
All right.
No, but there's a lot of things that we haven't gotten into. Last thing I want to do is
I'll
get
be
into-
back.
No, you have to be back.
If you have
I
me.
love that, right? But we haven't spoken about some other things that's actually afoot from an economic standpoint in the country. I know persons want to be able to hear more about the Grand Bahama Port Authority.
Yeah.
I know they want to be able to hear about other issues and entities and maybe even Abaco and how things are happening over in that particular space. And so we have to talk about that. But I got to take this time, these last 2 seconds,
All right.
to talk to you about St. Barnabas. Now, the last time that we were speaking,
Yeah.
this years ago now, not
Yeah.
last time, years ago when we had a sort of an in-depth conversation, you was considering, you say, how would I got to ask my wife? All us married, we know we got to ask our wife, baby, I could do this,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, so all of us have to ask our wives. You say, how would I got to talk to my wife about it? But this is something that is in my heart. I say, Mike, it's something that you got to do. And you found yourself in this position and being able to serve and really give yourself for the St. Barnabas seat, right? I thought it was an excellent thing. And I thought that you were on the cusp of victory. I guess the wave knocked you out the first time,
Yeah.
right? So talk to me about this. You nestled yourself in there, and I like to say this about you. Shannon Dawn presented a particular model in that constituency. And that model is truly empowering the people in that constituency. Many times we see politicians come into various constituencies and bring their people with them. Bring their people from elsewhere. Bring their people from the political organization. But what he did was empower the people in the constituency. I'm listening to people in St. Barnabas right now. And they say, Mike is the man. You've empowered those people.
Yeah.
You've created opportunity. You've built or you're building a clinic in the space for accessibility. You're doing a great deal. Talk to me about your chances for victory.
Yeah. Well, I think my chances of victory are very good. Of course, you have to continue your engagement with the people and your responsiveness to the people. Some people might ask how I end up there, and I'll do it quickly. I know we're coming up against the time. We remember I was in Golden Isles. Then our late brother Vaughn Miller came over and joined the PLP. So at that time, then he became the sitting PLP member of Parliament. And so I, spoke with the leader, and the leader says, "Well, look at these that are vacant." And I grew up in the Grove, in Coconut Grove, and I said, "Well, I'll go there." And he says, "Well, there was a juggernaut there, right? I mean, to be honest, Mr. Cartwright was a very popular member of Parliament at the time, but I decided I want to go and make an impact, having grown up in that community, really, knowing some of the challenges. And, we came up a bit short in the election, but I decided
A bit short.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I decided, listen, I'm not going to pack up and go and just leave, because
glad
it
you
would
didn't,
be it would be a betrayal to people if you're saying to them, I want to serve you, and as soon as you don't win, you pack up and go. So,
Listen, we got to have this conversation.
yeah. So
Okay, good.
so we maintained our presence. Thankfully, we were in a position. We were blessed to be in a position where we can have some impact and have a voice. And so, yes, one of my biggest things was to say, I said to Dr.
And you
Davel.
stayed.
Yeah, I stayed. I said to Dr. Davel, now I hear you talking about Palmetto Point Clinic. I hear you talking about Mangrove Key. I hear you talking about New Hospital, but we got to have that in the Grove. And myself and Glennis, Anna Martin. And so we eventually got it. It's underway. And so we expect to see it really start to pop out of the ground in the coming weeks. So that's going to be a fantastic achievement that is deserved by the people. The people deserve it. They deserve of that community. They deserve the highest quality that we can give them. And I just I continue to just, be in the community, try to impact this challenge we have with housing in terms of both access to housing, to affordable housing, as well as housing conditions. There's a lot of work we need to do with young people in terms of helping to empower them, making sure they're in school, they get an education, they have the opportunity to have positive interactions outside of school hours. And the elderly, making sure that they're not forgotten, and we can visit and have them have access to the services and the comfort that they deserve in their senior years. And so we feel good. We've been on the ground for a while, and so
For years.
Years. Yeah.
You really been working the ground.
Yeah. And so
You haven't relented. I
No.
saw that you were doing giveaways. You have fed the community. You have empowered those persons and provided them opportunities. I'm telling you, the language of persons and what they're saying on their tongue is Mike. And I don't know whether or not that is being able to light a fire.
Yeah. Well, I can say, Howard, it's a pleasure for me to be able to assist. Tomorrow we'll be in the Big Pond and Black Village area doing a cleanup, providing dumpsters for people who might have some stuff, bulk stuff that you need to get rid of. We'll do that tomorrow. But this is a pleasure for me to be able to do. Like I said, I'm from that community, so I know what it is. All right, and I say that there's a lot of distance of time between then and now, but I've never forgotten, and I know what it is to be challenged on a day-to-day basis, and so we want to be there to be able to give that helping hand, but more importantly, to empower. So where we can find employment, in any way, where we can find some way for people, whether it's directing people to improve the level of training that they have, so that they can get something better than a minimum wage job. Those are the things we want to do, and then we're blessed to be able to, give a little assist for some people who might be down and out. So we'll continue to do that. I'm seeking the nomination again, and I'm pretty confident. But then that doesn't mean we stop working.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's none other than Senator Michael Halkitis, member of Senator.
I receive it.
I receive it. Put up all the hands, right? Well, he's out in St. Barnabas, and all those persons that support him. I know that you're listening in. I get a tremendous amount of you guys actually here online with us watching in. So I want to thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you so much, Senator, for being able to be here with us today.
Thank you.
This has been a great conversation. Man.
Thank you. Please have me back. I'll be happy to come back.
Well, like I said, by-election coming up.
Okay, we can talk about that.
I want to talk about that.
All right.
And the general election is right after that. So I know that we're going to have a lot of time. Yeah. And then also I'll be in another space.
All right.
Come November, the first week of November.
Okay.
So I'll invite you with formality.
Yeah.
And hopefully you don't get me fired again.
No.
Right?
Oh boy. But I just thank you very much for having me. I look forward to coming anytime, and I just want to once again congratulate you on this pivot.
Thank you, man.
Into this format that
thank you, man.
This is the future.
Thank you, man. I want to thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for being able to be with us a little bit overtime today on the foundation. I want to thank you, and we're going to see you on Monday. Whoa, no! We don't have Monday's a holiday.
Yeah,
Monday's a holiday.
Got to go to Adelaide Village to the
Adelaide.
Adelaide is having the King of the Grill competition at St. James Anglican Church. So stop by and support them.
Go check Adelaide on Monday.
Yeah.
Guys, go to the beach. Be safe over the weekend. Make sure you go to the spa. We get that kink out of your neck. Do what you have to do. Reach out to my good, decent people. Vance them and all those guys over at Baha Retreat Spa. They can be able to assist you. Guys, I want to thank you again for being able to tune in with us. We're going to see you on Tuesday. God Spare Our Life next week, right here on The Foundation.
I have a dream where the powerful and the powerless will sit at the same table, where the haves will see the have-nots, not as burdens, but as brothers, where class will not divide us, but conviction will unite us. I have a dream